Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my February wrap-up. So if you've been watching my reading vlogs, which I will leave a link down below to my mid-month wrap-up, as well as all of the reading vlogs that I did in the month of February down below for you guys to check out. If you've been watching those vlogs though, you'll know that February was not my greatest reading month. I was just ended up having a lot going on with just work, and I was sick a little bit, and it was just a bit all over the show. So I definitely didn't get as much reading done as what I probably could have, but things were definitely picking up towards the end of the month. So as always, we will start off with my reading statistics for the month of February. So I ended up reading a total of 15 books in the month of February, and that was made up of 15 novels. I didn't read any graphic novels, manga, anything like that in the month of February. It was purely novels. And the 15 novels, I read 6 in physical format, I read 3 ebooks, and I listened to 6 audiobooks. Excluding the audiobooks, I read 7 books that I owned and 2 from the library. I read a total of 5,702 pages in the month of February, which averaged out to 204 pages per day. So even though I didn't have my greatest reading month, I did still manage to keep that average above 200 pages, which I'm pretty happy with. The longest book that I read in February was 516 pages, and the shortest book that I read was 265 pages. The highest star rating that I gave 2 separate books 4.5 stars in the month of February, and the lowest star rating that I gave was a 2-star. So my average star rating for the month, which was 3.58, which I'm pretty happy with because that's above 3.5, which I think is actually pretty rare for me in a reading month. So even though the quantity wasn't very high, the quality was pretty good this past month, especially over January, where my average was like 2.7 because I was reading some absolute trash. But yeah, so that was my statistics. As I mentioned, my mid-month wrap-up will be linked down below, and I'll link it in the cards for you guys as well. But that has the first 7 books that I read in the month of February in that video, so we'll only be talking about the 8 books that I read from the 15th through the 28th. So let's jump into those. The first book I want to talk about is There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This is a book that I had from NetGalley for a really long time, and I finally got around to reading, and this was one of my most anticipated books of 2017, even though I didn't get to it till 2018, and I did enjoy it. It definitely had its problems. I'm sure you all know this is a young adult horror thriller slasher book about a killer basically that's terrorizing a small town in Nebraska. It has some good diversity in it. The main character is half African American and half Hawaiian. There is a trans side character, although there is a slight issue, I believe, with some of the rep of the trans characters. So definitely look into some Own Voices reviews if you want to know more about that. Definite trigger warnings in this for gore and violence and some references to suicide. A lot of people had a problem that in this novel you find out who the killer is about 60-ish% of the way through, and from that point on you know who it is, and people said that they didn't enjoy that. I didn't really have a problem with that because we get this big kind of, even though we know who the killer isn't caught, so we kind of get this killer rampage going on instead. So there's still lots of murder and mayhem to be had. My disappointment that I had with it is that the main character has recently moved to this small town, and she's got this thing in her past is the reason that she had to move to Nebraska, and that was a big letdown to me. The reveal of kind of her backstory was very anticlimactic. I did love the love interest, that he wasn't your typical love interest. He's a bit more alternative, has a lip piercing, pink hair, all of that type of thing. The other thing that I do kind of wish had been in there was I wish we'd had more characters that we knew a bit better in the story that we could kind of have as suspects. Couldn't really feel like there was a lot of suspects within this, but overall I did really enjoy this, and in the end I gave it 3.75 stars. Next, I read To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. I really enjoyed this. This is a young adult contemporary about a girl named Lara Jean who every time she has kind of a crush on a boy, when she's getting over that crush, she writes them a love letter, and she doesn't mail them out, she just keeps them kind of as herself as a goodbye to that crush. And then one day these letters get mailed out and mayhem kind of ensues. I really enjoyed this. I thought that It was really cute. It's super quick to read, like really easy reading. I thought the sibling relationships were really good, and it was overall just a really like enjoyable contemporary, and I gave this 3.75 stars as well. I then listened on audio to Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. This is narrated on audio by Michael Urie, and I actually think that this might be a book where it's better to listen to the audio rather than read it, because I saw a lot of reviews that were talking about kind of one of the perspectives in this, that there was lots of, I think the way it was written, it had like a lot of capitals and exclamation points and stuff, whereas obviously you don't get that with the audiobook, so it may be one to pick up on audio, and I didn't mind the narration at all. This is a adult literary fiction that kind of has a bit of magical realism in it about a man, basically, and his dog, Lily. And one day, Lily has an octopus appear on her head. So that's kind of where the magical realism portion of it comes into it. This was so beautiful. This has basically one of the best bookish friendships I've ever read, and it was between this man and his dog. It was so beautiful. I highly recommend, if you're a fan of dogs at all, or just brilliant friendships even, definitely check this book out. I will also say that the main character in this is gay, so there's some gay rap in there as well. It was just overall totally enjoyable. There was a little part of it where it kind of lost me for a bit with the magical realism, but it really did bring it all back together, and I ended up really, really loving this, and in the end I gave it 4.5 stars. Next, also on audio, I listened to Lie to Me by J.T. Ellison. This one is narrated by a whole cast, which is made up of Matthew Waterson, Saskia Marleveld, Sarah Norton, and Julia Whalen. This is a thriller that is about a man whose wife has recently left him a note saying that she's leaving and not to follow her, but he realizes that there's some money missing from their account, and that also she didn't take anything with her, like anything at all, and they've been dealing with some personal issues. They recently suffered the death of their infant child, and he's just worried that there's either something sinister going on, or maybe she's planning to hurt herself, something along those lines. And then her friends are all suspecting of him because it starts to come out that maybe their marriage isn't everything that it seems to be, and it's just kind of this thrillery novel about that type of thing. It had a lot of similarities in terms of the plot, I thought, to Gone Girl. Not in terms of the writing style really or anything like that, but just the way that the plot is, it really did remind me of Gone Girl. I enjoyed this for the most part. I had some problems with it. Both of like the main characters, so you're kind of hearing a lot about the marriage. We've got the man and his wife. Neither of them are likable like at all. The man right from the beginning of the story like compares his wife to a thoroughbred racehorse, which I was just like, ugh. Like, yuck, I don't need that. Like, it immediately put me off him from the absolute get-go. The only character really in this that I liked at all was the detective who's trying to figure out what happened to this woman. So I figured out, like, what was going on pretty quickly. I also thought that they really tried, like, the motivations I didn't love. It also really tried for that kind of dun 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 ending, and that always kind of makes me like roll my eyes. I just didn't think it was really came off in this story, but it was enjoyable, like fast-paced kind of thriller book, so it was enjoyable, and in the end I gave that one 3.5 stars. I then completed Hungry Hill by Daphne du Maurier. This is it's historical fiction because it was published, I believe, in the 1950s, but it's set from 1820 to about 1920, and it follows several generations of a family. And basically, in the first generation, the man puts a coal mine into, is it coal? It's not coal. Copper. It's a copper mine. They put a mine for copper. He puts a copper mine into the side of Hungry Hill, which is on his land, and you follow kind of this family through several generations, and it does have a little bit to do with the feud between this family and another family who previously owned the land where Hungry Hill is, and that family kind of poisons the town against this like more prominent family, and that they don't like the copper mine and all of this type of thing. Overall, didn't love it. I thought it was quite dull, and I just really didn't like it that much. I don't really have anything much to say about it except that I just thought it was pretty dull, and in the end I gave that one 2 stars. Next I read P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. This is the second book in the To All the Boys I've Loved Before trilogy. I really enjoyed this one as well. This one had some good commentary in it on the double standards that we have in life, but in high school as well, between girls and boys. It also talked a lot about how, like, love can be scary. It could get a little bit frustrating at times in terms of, like, the relationships going on, but overall really cute, really enjoyable. Again, super easy to read, and I gave this one 3.75 stars as well. I then listened on audio to The Almost Sisters by Jocelyn Jackson. I'm not sure if it's pronounced Jocelyn or Jocelyn. It's spelled Joshilyn, so I'm not sure, but anyway. And this is also self-narrated by the author, and this is a literary fiction that is about a woman who has recently entered into a one-night stand with a man, and she has become pregnant from that encounter. And when she goes to kind of reveal to her family that she is pregnant, it becomes apparent, she gets a call that her grandmother is basically having this breakdown, and it turns out that her grandmother has been sick for quite a while, and it's her grandmother and her grandmother's friend have been hiding it from her. And it's basically a dementia-related disease, and so she goes home to the small town in Alabama where her grandmother still resides, and there's also this whole aspect to the plot of her grandmother, this secret kind of coming out about her grandmother's life. So you're dealing with, there's this kind of mystery part of it going on. You're dealing with her being pregnant with what is going to be a biracial child in small town Alabama. And so it speaks a lot about racism and privilege in particular. There's a lot of commentary on just those things in general, but she acknowledges about how she as a white person can never understand racism, how her child is going to grow up in a world that she is very different to the world she grew up in because she's white and her child won't be white. Just so much interesting commentary in it. I thought this book was so well done. I really, really loved it. If you're interested in reading a book about those type of topics, I would definitely recommend picking this up. I really enjoyed it, and I gave that one 4.5 stars. And the final book that I read in the month of February was Scandal by Carolyn Jewell. This is a historical Regency romance that basically follows this woman who has been widowed, and it's basically about a relationship that she has with this man who was friends with her former husband, or her late husband, they had kind of a friendship while she was married to her husband, and he basically wants to marry her now that her husband has been deceased for a while. And it's just like that kind of romance story. It was definitely a lot better written than most self-published Regency romances that you can find for free on Kindle, in my opinion. It was enjoyable. I had some questions at the end that I didn't think were answered, and there were like some parts of the story that I just thought were a little bit underdeveloped, but overall I enjoyed this a lot more than I do your typical self-published romance that you can get for free on Kindle. So in the end I rated that one a 3.5 stars. So those were all of the books that I read in the month of February. I would love to chat in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, if you have any thoughts. What was your favorite book that you read in February? I think my favorite was Lily and the Octopus, but just by a hair. The Almost Sisters is also really up there. And so I'd love to chat with you guys in the comments down below about what your favorite book was. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye guys.